You know, I remember once in the rail yards in Busan. This is before I started cooking. I spotted this little girl. I don't know. I would guess her middle teens, and underneath a blanket. And I asked this police Korean cop, you know, what's with this? And he says that's where she lives. Well, that was quite common there. People would live under bridges, under a shoe. I mean, they live. There was nothing there when I was there. So children ran like packs of animals.
Were they orphans? Were they orphans?
Oh yeah, the parents were dead. I mean, the war had really just ended, and there was still fighting going on. So these children are still alive. Anyway, what was this little girl? She lifts back this blanket. Here she had just was all full of holes. And I said, "Oh my God!" So I wanted to give her some money. And she was a leper, and I didn't know it. So I went back to the camp. I was going to give her some money, and the cop said, "Don't." He said, "Lay the money down. Don't touch her." So I laid the money down. And then he says, "They might kill her for that money." He said, "You have to give her small amounts of money, just enough so she can buy food." And that haunts you, you know, this, to know there was such poverty. And then I went back and told somebody in the barracks, he said, "Oh, the lepers are on the street here. So you got to be careful, you know, that you don't touch some." Or, you know, they'd crawl up in these boxcars and go to sleep. That's how they would live there. Then if you were in there trying to get everybody out of there, you wouldn't want to grab them and touch them because, you know, you would be exposed to leprosy. But those are bad things.
Yeah.
I was born in June 22nd, 1935. And I was about 5 years old when the Second World War started. And I went to school in Kenosha County. At that time, all the schools were mostly run by almost anybody. They didn't need an education because the quality people were in the service. So I had a bookkeeper for a teacher. We were in a 2-room school, 8 grades. And I didn't get a good education, I'm afraid. I was 12 years old, and we moved into town, into Racine, and I wasn't able to read and write. They didn't know what it was. So they run me a lot of tests. Well, then a nun came in from Holy Name and said, "Here, we'll take a test, but I'll read it to you." Well, when she read it to me, everything was fine. I was able to, you know, pass the test actually with, you know, really good marks. When I was probably 5 or 6 again, when this war first started, my dad was a maintenance man working at Green's Manufacturing in town here, and then we were just truck farmers. But because we were on a farm and knew a lot of farmers, they had contacts with cattle, where they raised cattle, and instead of reporting the cattle every time they had a calf, they'd just report when it died, and then they'd raise it out in the field, in the woods, so nobody knew where the young calves were. And then later on, my dad also worked as in a slaughterhouse, and they butchered them, and then it was, I guess, black marketed. And when you brought meat to people, they didn't ask what's in it. They just, you know, they would take the meat and give you the money. That, as a youngster, I knew that. We were just exchanging packages. Nobody ever asked, well, what kind of meat was in there. They didn't care. And on one occasion in particular, I was out with him. I think it was 6 or 7 then. And we were delivering in Kenosha at the Cup and Saucer downtown. Never forget that. And all of a sudden, the guy gets a phone call. He's Elmer. He said, "Get going." He's speaking to my father. He says, "The feds are coming." No, I'm just a kid. I don't know who the feds are. So, bam, we're in this Model T Ford. We're buzzing down in Kenosha. And all of a sudden, my dad goes off the road. He knew all the farmers and where they kept the cattle. So he drove down there, crosses some rivers. And sure enough, there's these lights are coming behind us. It was the feds chasing us. Well, okay. The next day I'm in school, and they're saying, "What happened to you last night?" I'm thinking, oh my God. You know, I wasn't hiding. I didn't hide. I didn't know what was wrong. And I said, wow, man, there was people chasing us, and you know, I thought I heard a shot, but maybe it was backfiring. I'm not sure. So I had to go back to school. I had to bring my parents back, and they were saying, your child has such an imagination. This is a story he tells us. So lo and behold, of course, my dad wasn't too happy with me when he got me home, and then he did explain a little bit, not in real detail. So I never really knew what was happening. But I did know after the war ended, we bought a house and moved into Racine, so I think maybe that's where some of that money came. I'm not really sure. 10 years old, I had a girlfriend, and her father had guppies. And I fell in love with it, and I got myself a little tank, and he gave me a couple of fish, and they just kept multiplying. I ended up with fish. When I went into service, my parents took care of them, and when I come home, I just never stopped doing it. And I'd have picked up a big tank, and it had these cories, they call them. They're catfish. And I noticed there was babies in there, so I figured, hey, there's a pair in there somewhere. And that's how I started breeding them. At one time I had 28 tanks in my basement. And I remodeled my whole basement from selling fish. That's way back.
Yeah.
You know, probably 40 years ago.
How did you stumble on that you could sell them? I mean,
well, when I was in a hobby shop, I mean, in the pet stores, buying food and so forth, I asked a couple of them, you'd be interested in buying these fish? And it was really easy. How many you got? Well, I don't know, 50, 100. Bring them in.
okay, so you said you went to the service,
Yes.
and when you came back, that's when you met your wife.
Yes.
So let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about that service.
Yeah.
You weren't in World War II. You were in
Korean War. And I met my wife Shirley. I think I was about 22 when I met her.
Where'd you meet her at?
Well, I was on a date at the beach downtown. And I saw this.
I'm assuming that she wasn't the date.
No, she wasn't. I had someone else in the car with me, and my friend was in the back seat, my cousin, and I says, in Italian, I said, let's take these girls home. And so we buzzed back, take the girls home, and then followed Shirley right to her house. Then I got enough nerve to ask her for a date, and she walks in the house. Well, lo and behold, a week later, I see her. I was coming out of a wedding, and one of my cousins was with her. And she says, oh, this is my cousin Elmer. So that's how we got introduced. So a few days later, I met her again and asked her for a date, and that'll be 50 years ago, this October 26th.
So what stands out from your wedding day?
You know, it was not a pleasant day. My parents and sister they wanted me to marry an Italian girl. And so it was not a real happy day. It's been happier ever since, but it was kind of a sad day in some ways. It was hard on Shirley.
So tell us about when you and your wife found this home, and you just had Chuck and Gino.
Well, we
drew
were
you to
living
this home?
in an apartment that I had painted right by the river. I think it was Liberty and LaSalle. And I just wanted to get a home. We were married 2 years, and I said, we need to have a home of our own. And she was a little leery, so we went out shopping, and we looked at least a dozen homes. And then we found this one. There was no street out front at all. It dead-ended at the corner, and it faced the woods with no road. I thought, what a perfect spot to raise a family. Because I figured they'll put a road in eventually. So I went home and told her, I says, we need $99. She says, we don't have $99. She says, well, no. She says, the other thing we do, the kids got $99 in a savings account. If you really want it, we could use it. We've got to put it back. So we borrowed their money, bought the house.
Did they know that?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Sure, they know the story.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's how we ended up getting this house. And, then my Uncle Jim, I went to him, and they were both, my Uncle Frank and Uncle Jim were both lawyers. And they said, how many can you buy? Because it was $99 down. Can you buy 20 of them? We'll back you. We'll give you the money. Well, that would have been illegal. They were GI loans. I mean, you had to have proof that you were, overseas and all that stuff, so we didn't do it.
So
you know.
what was the purpose of that? Were they going to buy them and rent them or something? Or
Buy 'em and sell them, I
and sell 'em?
suppose.
Hmm.
You know, when you think about it, my grandmother and grandpa came over from overseas. I know my great-grandfather came over in 1890 something. Then he brought my grandpa over as a boy, and they worked on the Reading Railroad. And you know, these are people that worked in foundries and very desolate. You know, my grandma, I know she talked about living in a home with dirt floors and open fireplace. She never wanted to go back there. She would never teach me Italian because of that. She says, "You're an American. This is where we make our money. This is where we live. You speak American."
Hmm.
But I missed it. I think it would have been nice to know a little bit more of my culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on the other side, my grandpa Riccio, that was my grandma Missoula. My grandpa Riccio, they worked in foundries. So he was a welder and made a good living. But he also, they never wanted to go back to the old country. It just was not good memories. I don't remember what lake we were at, but we were out there fishing, and there was this floating object you have, and you sit out. It's wooden. It floats out there. We were fishing out there. I falls in the water because there was a fish on a line, and I'm going down, trying to get up. There's a tube. I'm trying to hang on to the tube. I can't get up. I can't get routed because it would just kept rolling, and I'm going under for the last time. And all of a sudden, a hand comes down, whoosh, pulls me up. It's my son Gino. I was dead. I mean, I knew I was going down. I couldn't breathe. And he pulled me out of the water. He said, "We thought you were joking, Dad." He says, "Then I realized you're really kicking fast." He pulled me out and saved me.
So what hooked you? What was it that hooked you? You latched onto
I had a big fish on a line.
Okay,
and
so-
I was trying to pull it in. And I was leaning over. Well, I leaned over too much. I went in the water. I had meat cutting experience. I started cutting meat at about 13 years old. I was working for Hess Brothers, and I was paying permit money, and $1 a week, which was a lot of money. I only made 35 cents an hour. So at $1 a week, I thought, that's terrible. I went home and told my dad, "Dad, look what they're making me do. 35 cents an hour, that's 3 hours pay." He says, "Keep your receipts if you don't like it. Someday it'll pay." Years later, I was in a meeting in Chicago, and I hear this permit money. I thought, hey, I paid permit money. And this lawyer sitting next to me, and he says, "Boy, if you could only prove that, you could get your pension time all the way back from your little kid, you know, when you were just a squirt." Really? I got him at home. The guy said, "Boy, you bring him to me, you're in." Okay, all these 48 years go by. I'm in Milwaukee office, and I give him my papers. I want to turn in, and the lady says, "Hey, everybody, here he is." They never had anybody work 48 years in the meat business that had pension time that would go back that far. Not only did they have to pay me pension for the time I was 13 years old, they had to pay me my Army time, which nobody got that. So I ended up with 48 years of pension time.
Well, listen, this has been absolutely wonderful. When you think about who's going to see this, what comes to mind? When you think that this video is going to be left for generations to come, you know, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm thinking back to Grandma Missoula, how we sat her down and put her on tape, just her voice, and how all the information we got out of her about the dirt floors and how she never wanted to go back to Italy, and they really had a tragic life over there. All that's on that tape.
Yeah.
How precious it is.
Yeah.
And I think this may be the same avenue, very precious
Yeah. How often
for the family.
I really appreciate you taking the time to.
Oh, it's my
do
pleasure.
this with us. Anything else you can think of you'd like to say or pass on?
Family is where it's at.
You've been married for 50 years.
50 years this October.
October.
22nd,
Oh, that's right.
26th.
Yeah.
My wife's birthday is the 29th.
Okay.
So,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Well, Elmer, thank you very
Well,
much.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay.